We want to start off with a reminder that we are not doctors. Before you make any changes or try something new, always consult with your doctor and medical team first. Chronic illness can vary from patient to patient, so it's always best to consult with your own doctor for what is best for you.
Hello and welcome to IBD Determined. I'm your host, Mason Harvey, and I speak from the role of patient. I have Crohn's disease.
And I'm their other host, Michelle Harvey. I'm Mason's mom. And for this podcast, I speak in the role of a caregiver. And today's topic, we're on episode 21 of season 2. I
Wow.
believe we're getting close to, the end of season 2. July, we'll be switching over to season 3. So hopefully some new guests and a few changes. So maybe we can change the background.
Oh, maybe. Well, in the beginning.
Maybe sometime we'll talk about what we have in the background, because maybe some of you who are watching, you are listening, you're like, what is care less. Yeah, it's like, oh, this sounds the same.
Is that above his head?
But it might be fun. We can talk about this sometime. For today's topic, we are going to talk about how IBD can impact your social life. So, of course, everyone is going to be in different phases.
Disease is different for everyone, so it's going to affect everyone differently with how
how you socialize, what it looks like for you. And it also depends on your age, because we're speaking from, I'm going to talk about how it affects caregivers and how it affects parents. And Mason's going to be talking about from the perspective of a child teen.
Child teen.
Yeah, I know. He was a child when diagnosed. Now he's a teen with it. Yeah. So then some of you listening are going to be adults with this who might have a spouse. You might have a family member helping, so it just kind of depends what your situation looks like. So as always, we speak from our perspectives, never trying to push anything onto anybody listening, just hoping that maybe whoever's listening can gain some insight, see what they share in common with us, and maybe we can be some help or at least make you feel better. So like you're not alone with this. So
no one is alone.
Yeah. So the situations for how you socialize or how you can't is going to be as individual as the disease is. So that's why it's going to be difficult for us to cover everything. Some of you guys out there listening have no restrictions on how you socialize. You're doing great. And that's amazing. Yes. Some of you out there are the complete opposite. And they
can't really do much.
Yeah. You might be homebound. You might not.
Can't really go places.
Right. You might just be going straight to your doctors, back to home, things like that. And some of you who are doing great, as you all know with this disease, it can change. So you might wake up tomorrow and that happens with Mason, where we're like,
hey, I'm great today. Wakes up next day with a flare.
Literally, remember the day when we were like, Mason, you're doing so well. We're so excited. Like things are going so good. 2 hours later, like no joke.
Yes. No, like literally.
It changed.
Yeah.
And so it can happen. And it's part of the problem with this disease is there is really no predictability with it. The only thing you do know is it's not going away. Hopefully your medications, your treatments, your diet, whatever you're doing is helping it. But those things also affect your social life.
Yes.
So let's kind of jump in here. We're going to start first with a perspective like coming from someone like Mason, somebody who has the disease. So how social situations can affect them.
Yeah. Or them, yes, or anyone with
Mason, but Mason will primarily be, this is like his experience with it. And again,
I can't speak for everyone else.
No.
It's different for everyone, but it's just a kind of a rough outline that
and I'm sure we can all relate. Even if it's not exact, there's things that you can relate to.
Yeah.
And again, your social situations are going to be different. So let's talk about some of the different reasons, like for you, Mason.
I think one of probably the most important things that will whether you're in a flare, because if you're in a flare, there's going to be things that limit you. But if you're not in a flare, there's one thing that will never go away if you're in a flare or out of it. And that is if you're on medication, you are immunocompromised, immunosuppressed. Your immune system is really bad. Yeah.
Medication that does suppress your immune system. Not all of it
not
does.
all of it does, but for me, it's always there.
Right.
And so if I'm in a flare, I'm immunosuppressed. If I'm out of a flare, I'm immunosuppressed.
Right.
But that's just one of the things that never goes away, and you have to be careful because
this is about your comfort levels and what you've discussed with your doctor. Because some of you out there on these treatments that may suppress your immune systems and you still go about life like normal. and others are going to take certain precautions. So again, you can't, this isn't one size fits all.
Mhm.
And so it's up to what you're comfortable with. And that's what people should respect. This isn't
Yes.
about what they feel you should be comfortable with. It's about what you feel you are comfortable with and what your doctor is comfortable with.
You're the one with the
So,
disease and you come before other
mhm,
people.
and that is hard for some people to understand. They don't get that. Some of the things that can cause are like restroom issues,
Yeah.
right? Maybe going to a
Uh,
friend's house or
yeah.
it could be
Maybe
a
a
problem.
drive is like 2 hours
Mhm.
or something.
Even if it's nice half an
Yeah,
hour.
half an hour, that is
Um,
also dangerous if you're in a flare.
yeah, so you might have to use the restroom too often, or if someone is having like a party and you don't want to be the person in the bathroom for half
Mhm.
an hour, taking up the bathroom and then having to
Yeah.
explain yourself. So sometimes those are the kind of things people are just like, I just would rather stay home. I'm much more comfortable. And that makes 100% sense. If any of you had a flu out there, just imagine having the worst flu of your life and having to drag yourself to a get together and act normal. Like
Mhm.
everything is great. And most of you, if you had a really bad flu, you'd stay home.
Yeah.
So I'm not comparing. Please, like,
No.
understand. I'm not saying that Crohn's is like a bad flu.
Mm-mm.
It's probably just the only thing that a normal person might be able to relate it to. It's not the same though.
Basically just being really sick and then trying to act
Right.
normal, like you're not sick, you
And
know?
using the bathroom
Yeah.
constantly would
Yeah.
be difficult. And
Joint pain,
yes.
because when you let your team down or whatever when you're at
Mhm.
school, maybe there's a soccer match, something to do with baseball. A flare could affect that, and if you're out of
Yeah.
a flare, it can also be affected, but probably not as bad. So you can't run as fast, you can't swing a ball, maybe your joints hurt so bad you can't really
Right.
go to the match at all. But that's another thing.
Mhm.
Uh, Even going over, like, if you're just driving and hit a little bump, that can cause joint
Yeah.
pain,
So depending
depending on how
where
bad it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that can vary. So, but those are things that can limit you to what
Mhm.
you can do. Another big limitation for
It's
some people is
food,
food
yeah.
because maybe you have a
Think
trigger food.
Yeah, thankfully for me, I can eat pretty much anything,
Right now, yeah.
right now,
Hmm.
but if you are someone who is triggered by, a certain type of food, say it's pizza, and you go to your friend's birthday party, and the
They're
only thing they
serving
like is pizza,
pizza. Yeah,
and there's nothing else, and you're like,
right. And so
"I
then,
can't eat
yeah.
anything here."
And for some adults out there, alcohol is a big deal
Mhm.
too. You can't have alcohol, and I'm not telling you that. I'm just saying some of you can't. I do know a few people with Crohn's who they absolutely cannot drink, and that's how they did socialize before getting diagnosed. And so, food, drinking, and it's not as easy just to go to a restaurant, and you probably have to look over the whole menu before you go. You're probably Googling it. Okay, what would be safe to eat? Is this an okay place to go to pick up food from and where to go to? So food can be a big obstacle because people don't want to be that person at the get together at the dinner looking difficult or looking different. And hopefully you can find people that are understanding of that.
Yeah,
And
and they don't mind.
but it's still difficult, and it's up to you. Maybe you just don't feel like the only thing you'd rather eat at home where you're safe and you know you're not gonna send yourself into a flare, which is
Yeah.
completely understandable. Anxiety can be part of this. May have anxiety disorder, and that's gonna give you just going out and being in certain social situations.
Yeah, like
It,
maybe a big party or something
yeah,
close. Like, I think with me, I don't mind big crowds as long as it's
yeah,
an open area or a big area.
mhm,
But if you have maybe like, I don't know, maybe 10 people in a little area,
right,
I don't like that. I don't like people packed into small areas
yeah.
because there's not as much air and
Right.
it just doesn't feel as safe.
Yeah, and so that's gonna be look different for a lot of you. It might feel like it just creates too much anxiety, and that anxiety can lead to stress, which can lead to flares.
Flares.
And
Stress
so,
doesn't cause Crohn's, but it can cause a flare.
yeah, it can help it make those symptoms worse.
Mhm, and
And
that's
so
not good.
all those little things like the resting issues we're talking, those things that all spring up. So, so all these things kind of lead into another when you're considering going to a get together or
Mhm,
heading out. Other things are like maybe you have mouth sores. Some people get mouth ulcers, which
mhm,
is very difficult. Maybe you're having some kind of eye issues. A lot of people, that's very common for this. And
interesting.
hair loss is also common because of multitude of reasons, but hair loss and rashes, These are all things that for some people might lead to like maybe you don't feel comfortable. Some people are like, hey, I'm not going to let it stop me. And other people, understandably, might have kind of poor self image.
Which can also be caused by
Steroids
because
that yeah, because that can give you things like moon
moon
face
face.
and just it may cause changes in you that make you look different than you're usually going to look. Not that all of it is looks bad, but it just looks different. Some people might at a certain times might not feel like going out. And some other things might be fatigue. You can easily, with this disease, you can feel worn out. And again, that's because of physical changes going on in your body from malnutrition, from the disease itself, all sorts of things, anemia, you name it with this. And you can be very fatigued and
Tired, you
tired
just want
and
rest.
right. Maybe a good idea too is like, hey, I need to stay home tonight, even though I had planned on doing something. I need to change those plans.
Your health is
And
more important than plans.
that's kind of the hard thing, I think, for other people who don't have this to
Mhm.
understand. There's also appointments. You also have so many different appointments to go to that may cut into schedules along with school, work for adults, and then you're going to these appointments. So there's a lot going on.
I think maybe a good example, like things getting into your schedule. For us, we have to plan everything around hospital visits because it's not like, oh, we're going this place on Thursday. I don't. We can move the infusion to the next day, and
Yeah.
then you can have things planned. And then if you're in a flare, your doctor might plan emergency infusions or injections. You have to go to the down to the
Appointments.
doctors the
Yeah.
day they call you, and it's you didn't even know it was
So
gonna
things can
happen.
change.
Yeah. So you might have plans like, "Oh, I'm gonna go here on Friday," and then the doctor's like, "No, I think we're gonna have you come in so you can get your infusion and injection," and you're
Right.
like,
So your
"Wait, but"
so your
yeah,
life is like you may have things planned, but it can still change.
yeah,
And some of you out there who are patients are adults too, but financial strain is also an issue. It's a real struggle at
mhm,
times because it's difficult to sometimes work the amount of hours you need to make the kind of cash you need to go out to spend money. And you have a lot of bills. And so for some people, that's not an issue. For others, it might be. And
mhm,
so maybe you have to turn things down because you're trying to save and make sure you can pay for first and foremost, your food, your mortgage and your hospital bills, all that, the important stuff first. And so, that's probably not maybe as common, but I think it could be a thing. I
mhm.
definitely do. The issues like the frustrations probably for you is like or someone with this would be you can't do what you used to. Like
Yeah.
it's
It's interesting because, like, if I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 4 or
mhm,
2,
yeah.
I wouldn't have known any different. So
Oh,
it's actually interesting because it's like, would you rather have not known what, was before, like, what life was before when you had Crohn's disease, or would you want to know what it was like without a disease, you know?
right.
Because if you just had Crohn's disease, you never know what it would be like without it.
Yeah.
But when you get Crohn's disease after having nothing, well, nothing,
Right.
uh,
Just having a normal
yeah,
whatever kind of life.
you get that freedom, like, taken away from you because all this
Yeah.
stuff is new, it's all different, and everything changes, well,
Yeah.
depending on how severe it is, but
Right.
everything is just kinda different, and it's never gonna be cured, so it's just how your life is.
Yeah. Because I mean, I guess
There is
you
no cure yet.
no, that's what we're speaking out about and hoping to keep raising awareness and helping you guys out there. And I mean, I think you bring up a good point too, because maybe you're diagnosed in your 40s, and that would be really different because you had all this life where you made all these friendships, you have a family, you have a job, and then everything changes. And
And it just snaps.
right, so that's really tough too. It's hard. I don't think there's any
There's no good way to
good
have Crohn's
way.
disease
No, no, it all comes with
or
its
any
own
disease.
challenges. And
Mhm,
but I think it does affect who is your caregiver. I definitely think, when you're diagnosed as a child, your parent is going to be way more involved than if you're diagnosed at 40.
mhm.
That point, it would be more likely your partner, your kids, they're going to be that immediate caregiving source. And but for us, because you were 11, we're part of the team with you and
You're
going through
affected.
everything with you.
You're
We're
affected
affected.
by it in
Yeah.
every way.
So it's a little again, so it's all can vary. It is interesting. The age really can make a difference
Mhm.
who your team is. I think for us, we've learned a lot of empathy and a lot of things from this, from watching him that'll help him in the future. Like maybe in the future, like if he's supposed to, we're supposed to meet up and he's like not feeling well, like I told him, I'd be like, that's no problem. We'll come to you,
Mhm.
like if you want us to.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, I just want to sleep and I don't want anyone to come over. But if you're like, yeah, and it's like, okay, I'll pick up food and bring it over, or I'll make something that you can eat. I'll bring it over. There's I think look at it very differently because I would know right away he's not just being difficult or saying that it's very real. And so I'd have no problems with that because I'd understand that. So I think it's important that sometimes people get upset because they don't understand this new you, like when you've been
Mhm.
diagnosed and they want to go back to the old friend they knew, the old
Yeah, that could do everything. Yeah.
yeah, and so I think there's just a lack of they have their own frustrations because their friendships or their family relationships with you have changed, and there are some frustrations, so I think everybody needs to kinda take a step back and just, like, really look at this and
Try to understand.
understand right, that it's the disease causing all of this.
It's not like I decide to have Crohn's disease and
It's not like you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna have
yeah.
Crohn's disease, I don't wanna go to this dinner tonight." It's
Yeah.
like, no, that's
I
not
didn't
how it
want that.
works, no. So, you just have to learn, I think this is something I've really taught Mason, is to be able to say no.
Mhm.
And, even if that means someone else is disappointed or upset, you have to put your health first.
Mhm.
And it's okay to say no. It's okay to set those boundaries. And just don't be afraid to stand up for yourself with this disease. And I think that kind of leads into the caregiving because I really want Mason to feel comfortable in the future being able to explain or not explain,
Yeah.
whatever you want, but be able to
Mhm.
say no.
Yeah.
And it's like, "That's it. No, I can't make it."
Mhm.
And I'm sure, depending who you are, you may wanna explain why, others may not. And
I would explain why, but
right.
it's different for everyone.
Right.
Everyone can do it how they
Yeah.
want to, but
And I'll kinda, like, go a little bit more into that, but so basically as caregivers, all the reasons Mason just listed, the reasons why it might be hard for a patient is the same reason it might be hard for a caregiver, with the exception that we are not going through it.
even though I'm a patient, I'm the one
Yes.
with the Crohn's disease, it affects anyone who's in the family,
Right.
because like, she might have to go somewhere. She might wanna go
Like, I might
somewhere or
have an
try to go
appointment with a
somewhere, or
client,
yeah, she
you
has
know?
to go to work or something,
Yeah.
and then I go into a flare,
Yeah.
and then it's like, "Well, now what do we do?" Because I'm
Mhm.
going to the bathroom 8 times a day, and you don't
Right.
know when it's going to happen, and you're like, "Well, now how are we gonna do it?" Now my
Yeah.
dad might have to stay home,
Right, so I
and
can get to
yeah,
work and then he has to call in, and so
so it affects everybody.
it does, and so we are affected. We are not the ones suffering through the pain aspect of it, the
Mhm,
physical aspects. We're not, but we are just going through it with everything that he can't do, we can't do.
mhm,
And basically our limits are the same as Mason's. And so even if you have a partner, if you have kids, their limitations may be similar to yours too on a different level.
mhm.
Obviously adults might be able to drive themselves to appointments. They are doing their own
Yeah,
insurance, things like that. But as of right now, and what it's can be a challenge and it's just adjusting. You just have to like now I'm far more used to it because it's like, okay, we have methods in
yeah,
place
and you know what to
and
do once
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So, but at first everything's kind of
it's
chaotic.
chaos, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know
And
what to do.
yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh, I need a job. Like I have to keep
Mhm.
working. And so
You need a
anyways,
job to pay for the medication.
yeah, it's a whole thing.
Yeah, and then insurance is like,
Mhm.
"No."
And this is something that as a parent, I'm the one telling other people why we can't visit or turning down invites. And so I can see how you guys might feel who have to do it, who are adults, who are doing this yourself and telling somebody that you can't make it to something that you had already said you would make it
Mhm,
or whatever. And this person is like frustrated with you. So I get it because I hear it when we have to explain it. We have a lot of people though who are like totally understanding, which is great. There's only been I think a few people who didn't really understand. We have someone that Mason had really wanted to see when he wasn't feeling well,
mhm.
and we'd ask them to come visit, and this person would not come visit and was like, "Well, you can come to my house." And no matter how many times we tried to explain why it wouldn't work, it
You understand that I'm the one with the disease, and I'm going through things
Yeah.
and you could easily come over.
Like I felt like I was hurting their feelings by like, and I mean, I have to obviously take a step back and realize that wasn't the case
They got
because
Crohn's disease.
yeah,
Wow.
it's like it's not hurting you, it's hurting him. Believe me, you might be frustrated, but so that's why I say sometimes, because in your efforts to explain the truth, I really hope anyone listening who's on the other side of this does take the time to listen and just know that they're not making excuses. And you shouldn't have to like we were talking about earlier, and this kind of leads me into that. You shouldn't have to explain if you didn't want to.
Mhm.
If it's like, hey, if you invite somebody over and they don't want to come over, then that's that. You just leave it at that and
It
move
is.
on. If with this, that if you say you can't, you can't.
Mhm.
And maybe if you're newer to it, it definitely is worth. I personally would still explain to
Yeah.
somebody because we've had a lot of people learn a lot
Yeah.
from Mason and learn a lot from this, and they've thanked us like, "I had no idea it could be like that." And so in our case, we're very comfortable and Mason is very comfortable.
Mhm.
So from caregiving and from patient perspective, we're both comfortable sharing and saying why we can't be there because I feel like an education is the best.
Mhm.
And helping somebody, it's the only way you're gonna help them understand. And I think the people who stay silent and maybe go to things and they're miserable and in pain, it doesn't help anything.
No.
And it's not about you making someone else feel comfortable with your disease. It's really about you being comfortable with
You
your
don't have to
disease.
tell them if you don't want to, but if you do, that'd be a help.
Yeah,
But if you don't want to tell them, you can always tell them about the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation.
refer them there.
Yes.
It, again, and it depends how well you know somebody. And most of our family members want to know more. And someone who actually cares about you will ask and,
Mhm.
and genuinely care. I think an important aspect is a mutual respect and understanding and realizing that it's nobody's fault.
Mm-mm.
And don't be angry at the person,
Nope.
be angry at the disease.
Yes.
So if you want to get angry at something, be angry.
It's not that person's fault. It's Crohn's disease's
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah. And like with Mason, sometimes he's doing well enough and we can do something. But maybe a week later we can't do the same thing we just did. And if he's feeling good enough to go somewhere, if it's a safe setting that he feels good about, we all feel good about,
Mhm.
we can do it. And if we don't, we
You don't.
don't. Yeah. And just because you see somebody, on Facebook doing something and then all of a sudden they're like, I can't make it, talk to them about
Yeah.
it. Don't get angry. Just it's not worth it. It's not worth getting angry. Talk to them. And I think another important thing is to find your community.
Mhm.
Find I think this does help with social situations. Find people who understand, maybe other people with IBD, you
People
know.
who can relate to you and
Right.
understand.
Yeah. And it also maybe friendships aren't going to look as traditional as they used to because again, your life is already different than it
Mhm.
used to be. And so maybe you're not going to have the same kind of friendships and maybe you might be friends with someone who lives hundreds or thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
Maybe, you communicate through social media together, but you can form real friendships and that is what's pretty cool about how it is. I mean, I think it's one of the really cool aspects of social media.
Yes.
Really, one of the good superpowers of it.
Yes. One of the good things about
Yeah, and like gaming communities, you have several friends. He's got a lot of friends that he meets up with, and they know about Mason.
it. Mhm.
He's been honest with them about his situation, and it's pretty cool. So there's our regular friendships we have, our regular family members, but then there's other communities that we have for support. So reach out and find those friendships that bring you joy
Yes.
because that's what it's about and not worrying so much about others are going to think or how they're going to define your situations. It's really doesn't matter. So the more you can find joy in this disease and happiness and other is so
Important. Yeah.
important. Yeah. It's just it's easy for someone without this disease to not understand it.
Mhm. 'Cause they can go to the store, whenever they want. They
They
can.
don't have to map out where
Yeah.
every bathroom is,
Yeah, or at school, or joint pain and running and doing sports and
Right.
activities.
And so, I mean, consider yourself very fortunate if you don't have to have a second thought about any of that because there's people out there who do, and it does affect all these decisions. And don't worry, find a support group where people don't belittle you, where they don't force you to defend yourself and don't make you feel guilty about having boundaries. And so that support system is crucial. And we have so many good, I think,
Yes, good support
people.
groups.
Yeah, it really we're very lucky. And so I think you guys probably don't even realize it, but I think it takes a lot of courage to stand up for yourself and say, I can't do something. It's like you don't want to look weak. You don't
No.
want to not show up to something that people think like, oh, they're just being dramatic. So I think it does take more courage to advocate for yourself and to say how you feel. And
Mhm.
so if you're one of those people out there who are able to speak up and just be honest, that takes a lot of courage. And part of this podcast is just to kind of say like, we see you and
You're not alone.
right, you've definitely have
We
a
see you and we'll try to understand you, even though it's different for everyone.
right.
We will most likely understand.
Yeah, and we can probably validate all those feelings you're going through.
Mhm.
And forgot to mention earlier in the comments, and I was going to, or earlier in the podcast, but was going to tell you guys in the comments, let us know examples of social situations that have been difficult for you, or reasons you couldn't go, or whatever it might be, because I think this is a much broader topic. It could
Mhm.
go on and
We could
on.
make multiple videos on
Yeah,
this.
you really could. And so today was just kind of like a lead into that. But
A
there's
little intro.
yeah, I mean, we have all kinds of stories we could tell from our own life about these, but we'd love to hear some of yours and maybe have something for us we could talk more about and help you guys out with because I'm sure if you're going through it, someone else is too.
Mhm.
And so it's worth talking about. So that's gonna wrap that up. I don't want to. We could keep going. I don't want to keep going. I'm gonna start rambling,
Mhm.
and I think this is a good lead into it. I think we can revisit this again for sure, and hopefully you guys will let us know what you thought about it. And you guys can follow us on social media at Team IB Determined on Instagram. Follow the Reggie Project, where,
Pictures with you and your favorite cheese
yeah,
pizza.
yes, we would love that, guys. We want to get the word out there and show people what your guys are fighting and show them how you're fighting
Show a
and what you're
picture of
doing.
you with Reggie in the hospital if you want, or a picture of you and Reggie at Disneyland, or you and Reggie at the store.
Yeah, it can
Uh,
be
yeah,
anything, like
maybe
literally
just you
anything.
holding it off camera, or it could be with your face. However you want to do it.
Welcome to listen to our podcast on stations like Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and now on YouTube as well, and other stations, which will have a link for you
Yes.
guys.
And if you do want to watch us and hear us, make sure to go to YouTube videos. And if you are on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to be notified every time we post a video, make sure to hit that bell icon.
Yeah.
And if you want, leave it, like she said, leave some
Yeah.
comments. So,
And that
yeah,
way you guys can reach out to us and help us better direct where we're going to take the podcast and things we can talk
yeah.
about.
Talk
So,
about what you want to see in future episodes, anything
mhm,
you're related to,
yeah.
all that good stuff.
So, with that, guys, have a great day, week, month, everything,
Yeah,
all
everything.
of it.
Maybe a great summer break if you're already
Yeah.
on your summer break. If you are, I don't know.
Yeah.
Have a great summer break if you are watching this during your summer break.
Yeah, if you are.
Yes,
Yeah.
if you are.
So, but you guys, we will see you guys as normal a week from now.
Yeah,
So, yeah, we do these once a week. So, we'll see you guys
in the
in
next
the next episode.
episode. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope you will stick around, tune in, and reach out to us with your own journeys. We are excited to give you an inside view of what it takes to be a caregiver and what it's like to be a patient.
And most of all, we hope you'll maybe be able to apply something you hear on here that might help you in your own life. Sometimes life changes, and it's all about how you handle the journey.